Welcome back to the FIT40 Podcast, where we simplify exercise and nutrition for busy parents 40 plus so they can improve their health and feel amazing. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach for people over 40 since 2015. And today we have an awesome guest with us. We have Terri Catania in the house. She is a mother, a teacher, a triathlon and marathon athlete, and my client for over 3 years. So Terri has been through an incredible transformation, not just physically, but mentally as well. And she's come such a long way, and I want her to share her story with you guys because I know she is going to be a wealth of inspiration, motivation, and education. So Terri, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to have you on. I feel like this is very overdue. I was always like, when Terri does this thing, I'm going to have her on, but then we'd sign up for another thing and I'd be like, ooh, after that, we're going to get her on. Because for those of you that don't know Terri, she is the quintessential marathon triathlon person that as soon as they're done, they're already on their phone looking for the next one.
Yes, that is very true.
Which I totally get. That was like me when I did powerlifting and like when I did bodybuilding, it was always, when's the next one?
Yeah, you get through it and then you're like, okay, I'm so trained up. What can I do next?
Yep, exactly. So if anybody here is like listening is considering, should I do a 5K or a marathon? Like I've been thinking about it, just do it. You're going to catch the bug. You're going to like it.
Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Mm.
All right. So now before we dive into like everything that you've accomplished, like when we talk numbers wise, I'd love for you to let the audience know a little bit about you and like what your experience was with diet and exercise before we started up. Like how did you get introduced to exercise or introduced to nutrition and all that when you were younger? And like, how did it kind of go throughout the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, my journey starts way back. I was in a ballet studio, and as a little first grader, I was in 8 hours of rehearsals on Saturdays for a real long length of time until I was in 8th grade. And in first grade, we would have our breaks, and the prima ballerinas in our company would have a yogurt. And I would watch that and I would think to myself, wow, I have like a sandwich and fruit, and my mom packed me a little Debbie. And, and I would look at that and I'd look at this 8th grader or 9th grader who was so amazing at what they were doing, and they were, developed already. And I thought that that was what I was supposed to be doing with my nutrition. And that started way back when I was really quite small. So, that part of my journey, I think, is really important to note, because I think there's a lot of women and young girls that get influenced early on in those eating patterns and the way they view food and the way they view food not as fuel. And if you're an athlete or you're dancing 8 hours a day or you're into any type of level of competition, you need to fuel your body with nutrition in order for it to operate well. So I would say that's kind of the starting point of maybe some real negative approaches to the way I viewed food. And then as far as kind of fast forward through life, I was always athletic, into volleyball and running and different things. And I'm also a musician. I'm a music teacher. So like that took a back seat once I went into college, and was more in the practice room than I was doing any sort of activity physically. And so that was more of a priority. And then I moved into the next phase of my life, married with children, and I have 3. I had 2 children that are right now 24 and 21, and then there was a big break, and then I had my last child at age 40, and he's 11 right now, so I'm giving away all my secrets. And with my last child, I had been into really working out, and I was fit before I had him. And then once I had him and stopped nursing, which is very normal for women who are nursing, you're used to taking in more calories to feed your child. And then when that stopped,
for 2.
I had, yeah,
for 2.
And I had turned 40. So my metabolism had changed a little bit too with that age change. I gained a lot of weight. I was not healthy, and I was trying to work through that, and I was really unsuccessful. So I did have a personal trainer that I was working with. Once he turned about, I think it was about 5 years ago, I started working with a personal trainer who's a good friend of mine, and he's amazing. And we went through COVID together, and a lot of transformation as far as not only how I approached my diet, but it was more of a calorie counting approach, but it was more about the physical limitations and pushing myself and learning how to strength train and putting muscle tone on my body that we spent time doing. And then my next phase was he moved on, and I was physically in shape, but my nutrition was really poor. And what I mean by saying that is I thought if I ate 1,300 calories a day as a 5'3" person who's incredibly active, that was going to fuel me, because I always wanted to see that number be lower on the scale, and not really looking at what I was supposed to be doing as far as fuel for performance. And so I think that's the transition that led me to Brian. And we talked a number of times online about this situation. I'm like, well, I feel like I'm pretty strong with the physical activity piece, but I really need some guidance on the nutrition, because I've got a few hangups on like looking at the number on the scale and wanting to be a certain number, and just not really fueling for what my goals actually were. So I think that kind of takes us to where we are right now in the conversation. So
Yeah, yeah. And I think that there's definitely a lot of people listening right now that are like nodding their heads. Like there's something similar about that journey that's like, yep, that totally hit home. Because I know so many people deal with this stuff that where they have these influences when they're young, and it shapes a lot of their whole journey. But I mean, to your credit, you took the steps to take responsibility for where you were at and figure out, okay, how the heck do I get to where I want to be? And I think that that's a huge, huge step that a lot of people need to take. And I think, honestly, the way you described it seems like a very standard approach for the people that see the best success. It's like start with the activity, get the personal trainer, get into the rhythm, and then the nutrition, and then we figure all that out. And that seems to be like a nice flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm curious. Yeah. And I'm curious before we dive into the notes that I have here. I know you made a mention about being fit like pre-pregnancy. And how did that compare to before that? Like when you had your other three, like were you somewhat fit or not really fit before those pregnancies? And how did that compare to your fourth?
Yeah, I had always, once I got into past being a college student and working through all of those things and learned how to cook and learned how to do some of those things, I was a gym member, and I was running like the silly fun mud runs and things like that. So I did have an approach to my fitness, and it was a good approach, but it certainly wasn't the level of knowledge that I have now. So it was definitely just I'm going to walk, I'm going to run, I'm going to do a little bit of strength training, I'm going to take some classes with the first two. And then after I would have a child, then I'd shed that baby weight. And I didn't really gain a lot with those first two. It was the third that I definitely gained more weight than I wanted to. So
That seems to be a theme when I like, because like I work mostly with moms, and everybody seems to say first one, not a whole lot of weight gain, but then that second or third or fourth, it's like that was the one.
Yep. Yep. When I started running with my youngest, I had a jogging stroller, and I I'd say to him, the kid that made me gain the weight is going to help me lose it. And I'd go out running,
There
and
you go.
oh, I'm trying, but
And I mean, this is just further proof that like the firstborns, such as myself, we're just a gift in every way, shape, and form. There's like no negatives.
as well. I'm not going to argue. That's like,
We're we're perfect. I mean, they could have just stopped at us and it all would have been fine, but whatever. Um, no, I love my brother. I do. But,
He's listening.
yes. And with all of that, like being in the mix of everything, did you catch any of your friends or family members that had like different like pregnancy and birthing experiences? Like, did you notice anything was a little bit easier, a little bit different for you?
Mm. I think that's such a good question. Most of my friend group was in a different place than me because I was married at 22, had my first child at 26, second at 30. So like we were in different places in our life, and all my cousins are younger than me. So now it's like they're asking me for advice now, which is really a great place to be, right? I had people in my life that way. So I would say that not at the time. I didn't have those people that I could talk to or like go through this situation with. I didn't feel, and I also feel like there was a little bit, at least for me, I felt a little bit ashamed that that was how I was viewing my nutrition or how I was viewing my baby weight or the fact that like when you're nursing, you're probably holding on to more fat because you need to so you can feed your baby well. So I think there were some maybe societal pressures that I was feeling and that I wasn't strong enough to push through. And whereas now as an older parent for the third time, it's far more different to have that confidence and knowledge and wisdom that comes with going through it 3 times.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting perspective because I mean, as a guy, I will never understand this. No guys will ever understand that pressure. But like we learn things in like textbooks and all that, but nothing really beats hearing it firsthand and being like, this was my experience because I can't imagine how tough that is to be like, I got to meet these societal standards, but at the same time, societal standards are like the worst thing for the baby. So it's like, what do we do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, and then also that brings up a good conversation around hormones and everything too, because you want to do certain things, but the hormonal fluctuations that are happening are putting you in a place where mentally and even physically you're just like, I don't want to. And how long can you really fight that off until eventually you just give in?
Yep. There's that. And then, of course, the very obvious, the lack of sleep.
Yeah,
So,
that's the one thing I'm like, when me and Amanda have this conversation of when, I'm just like, I am not looking forward to losing my sleep. I'm such a baby when I'm low sleep, pun intended.
oh, yeah. Yeah. The lack of sleep is something really real. I mean, if you're trying to do all the right things and then you're also operating on no sleep or little sleep, I'm sorry, my children, all 3 of them, terrible sleepers. They stink. So when I have like my friend or my cousin, they're like, "Yeah," I'm like, "I'm so sorry. Like I wish I had a magic spell to give you, but it's not there." And then, but that feeds into your ability to make good food choices or to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to do more than just go walk with the baby in a stroller. So like, those
Yeah.
things are really real.
Yeah. And don't worry, there's definitely some predatory supplement companies saying that they can solve all your problems with one pill. So I'm sure it's out there if you go look. Um,
Probably.
yeah, but anywho, back to the positive stuff, because even with all that going on,
Yeah.
when we started working together and everything got off on the right foot, we started seeing some progress because I know when we first started, you told me like straight up, like, I don't see results happen that fast. Like this stuff happens slow, and that's just me.
Hmm.
And I think that level of awareness is huge because a lot of people want to lose 20 pounds in 20 days. And it's like, whoa, 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 let's know thyself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still me right now. Like it's exactly me. I don't operate. My body adjusts so magnificently when I'm high activity level, and the choices I make, that I really have to be so intentional and thoughtful about what I'm doing and understand that I'm not going to see that fat loss or that weight loss happen like that. I'm probably not even going to see it happen. It's going to happen gradually, and it's going to be so slow that I won't notice it, but other people will.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always that one person that makes a comment and you're like, you sure? Like, I wasn't thinking that, but I feel pretty good about now. Um, but no, I think you in particular, like as a case study, is like something that I think a lot more people need to be exposed to, because to be totally honest, over the past like 3+ years, go figure 3 and 3, but like
Yeah.
overall, we're 3 pounds heavier than when we started, but your body's completely different
Mhm.
because we lost 14 pounds of body fat and put on 17 pounds of muscle. So for anybody doing the math, 17 pounds of muscle minus 14 pounds of fat, that's 3 pounds added on, but totally different.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I feel different. And um, I would be honest in saying that the number on the scale still bothers me. Like, definitely still bothers me. And I push through it and work through it. I don't know if it'll ever go away. And I think I've gotten to the point of accepting that that's a part of me. And at the same point, I work with high school kids, and I'll be in the weight room with high school kids, football team, other kids looking to be fit. And I'll be like, okay, dang, I'm 51 and I can do this. And there's no one that's looking at me and going like, wow, she's so weak or anything like that. I,
Well, I
I
mean, I don't know how many of my teachers, let alone the female teachers, rowing 50 pounds for 10 repetitions. I can't name you a single person that was an educator in my school other than maybe one that was a male bodybuilder.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, you're holding your own.
yeah, and I think that when I do struggle with that thought of like, oh my gosh, but I'm not continually trying to make myself smaller. I'm trying to make myself stronger and fitter and maybe faster or more endurance or be able to swim a quarter mile, or like those are my goals have changed, and I think they've changed for the good. And that focus has been something that's been inspiring for me to be able to like just shift. And um, one of the things that I've done that I think has helped me in this regard is the influencers that I follow. That if you're doing social media, you really have to be smart about having a pretty clean slate of who you want to follow, because if I'm following someone who's 25 years old, never had any children, and this is what they do to be healthy and strong, and it's going to be really different for someone who's like me, who's had 3 children and has an intense work schedule and after work schedule, how I'm going to fit that in. It's got to look different. And I also think you need to be looking at different bodies too, and different types of bodies and what they can do. And that shift in focus for me has really made the difference. Like if I have an influencer, I'm like, ooh, I kind of like them, or I like them on social media, and then I'll follow them a few times. And then if there's something that just doesn't sit right, I'm like, okay, no, they're gone, because I don't have the time to sift through that and be like, okay, that's for me. Okay, that's not. It's like either you're for me or you're not. And you're filling your brain with that. And you're constantly looking at those things and comparing. And one of the really fun things that I say in my classroom, and I do really believe it, and sometimes I'm tested at that, is comparison is the thief of joy. And that's such a little like, quick phrase to say, but it's so true. Like, I can't compare my journey to someone else's. We're so individual.
Yeah. And you're honestly probably at different you are at different chapters. It's like, I know, like same here when it comes to like business stuff, is like you compare yourself to somebody who's been in business for like 10 years and they're in such a better place with all these things. And you're like, that's chapter 10. I'm on chapter 5. Why am I comparing myself? And it's very easy to do that in pretty much any sector of life. So I mean, it's such a huge deal. But I like how you acknowledge the whole idea of that like kind of devil on your shoulder type deal, where we got the angel and the devil. Like you have that whispering voice saying the weight should be lower, the weight should be lower. But you acknowledge it instead of trying to suppress it. You say, hey, I'm thinking these things, but I know better. Like I know that that's not the case, or I know that this isn't serving me. And then we fall back on things that are more positive, like performance-based goals, which are like the cheat code when it comes to feeling those negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I know your Ragnar time in particular, I think, and you could explain what a Ragnar is to people who don't know, but to put it in perspective, like when Terri ran the Ragnar, probably first one with me as her coach, did good, but then that second one was like, whoa, like when we started fueling instead of just being in a deficit while trying to perform.
Yeah, very true. So a Ragnar is a relay race that they have all over the country, and it's a team of 12 runners, and you rotate in two vans. You rotate those runs, and it's for a span of 200 miles. And so my first Ragnar was done in Minnesota with one of my cousins, and we joined a team, and they're runners are pretty cool people. So that's a part of it. You start at Minneapolis, and then we went to Duluth, and we just like piggyback and do that relay. So so I did my first Ragnar 3 years ago. I think that was when we first started working together. And I was definitely in the, I am going to keep my calories low. I want to make sure I'm maintaining or even still trying to lose weight. And I would say that that left me weary. And I don't take any of my training schedules lightly. Like I pack them in and I make sure that I am really well prepared. And that the first two Ragnars I'd say I did with you were like, I was so intense. I was doing 2-a-days, and I'm like, but I need to get my stamina. And so I'd be like, I'm going to bike to work, which is 10 miles. And literally it's a 3% incline for 9 of those miles. Going home is really fun because it's fast, but going to is like we're, going up the glacial drumlins. And I would do that. And then I'd be like, okay, and now I'm going to run 5 miles after school. And so it's things like that, and then not fueling. So I think that's the difference is like, I'm going to do all of this activity and all of this training. I'm going to do it on 1,500 calories. I don't care if my long run is 7 miles and I'm going to burn like over half of that. So I do think that you have helped a lot with that kind of guidance of that performance is power, and then your food is what is going to get you there. So that's really changed things for me.
And I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you taking that message to home and like embodying it, because it's so easy to hear all these things. But then at the end of the day, those negative thoughts end up winning, which I think a lot of people end up in that spiral a little bit. And because I know you and me have had that talk, I don't even know how many times about how adaptation is stress plus recovery equals adaptation. And then when we get to that place where we're properly fueling, it almost feels like a cheat code. Like I remember you said like that time that we did properly fuel, you're like, I feel so good.
Mhm. Yeah. I literally finished that was this year. I finished my Ragnar in Washington, and what a beautiful place to run. You're up mountains and everything. And the weather was good this year, and I finished and I was like, I'm not sore. I'm not starving. I'm not like trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my body for a whole week, which is going to be all way off. I felt ready to go, and I did give my body the rest. It did take me a week to really have my brain and body sync up, but it wasn't like I was flat out done. It was just like, no, this is what you do after you've just run 16 miles in 32 hours on 0 sleep. This is what you do. You take a week to slow things down and recover, and you will feel better. And that's what I did. And it really did work. So
Yeah, and I think too, another thing that we talked about that seemed to pay off really well is the cycle of training, where it's like a lot of people will just gun it right up until race day because they're like, I got to be at this level, I got to be at this level, I got to know that I'm at this level. Where there's a little bit of blind faith in that last couple of weeks, where you could test yourself like a month or two out, but you do not want to be testing that close to race day, because then you can't recover enough to be at your peak. because if without getting into the exercise science of it all, like there is something called like deliberate overtraining to get overcompensation and all these things. I'm too far removed to give you guys an exact example and sound smart doing it. But the general gist of it is you push yourself to the point where you are burnt out. And that's maybe like 4-ish weeks out, maybe even more. And then when you dial things down, your body recovers in a way that allows your performance to like go through the roof because your body is now recovering at an elevated rate and you're not stressing it out at that point. So when you hit race day, you're like superhuman. But that's what peaking is. And a lot of people don't understand the concept of peaking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I think for this last race, I did my first triathlon sprint, and I was struggling with being able to find the body of water that I could swim in to then go into the bike, into the run. And I wanted to practice those bricks. And that was we had, I'm in the Wisconsin area where we had some major flooding right before that. So I couldn't even get to the lake I wanted to train in because the roads were literally flooded. I couldn't even bike there. I mean, I suppose I could have swam there, but the water is pretty gross. And that was the one thing that I worked with you on. It was really hard for me to understand that. I'm like, but I still haven't done the this to this to that. And I'm a week out, and I was feeling really stressed about that. And I do appreciate that you were like, but the science says this, and you are going to perform better if you listen to me. So,
More or less.
right. In a really kind way.
Yes. Every coach has hit that point with somebody who is as committed and high performing as you are to like where we got to pull back a little, has always had that come to Jesus talk of like, you just got to listen to me on this one.
You just have to do it.
But I like the fact that you brought up the periodization. I like about it's like this phase, it's that phase, it's that phase. And it's very much the same way when it comes to dieting. And I don't think a lot of people understand that as much as I talk about it at nauseum on this podcast. I think it does help hearing from like your perspective too. How was that? Because I know when we were reverse dieting, that was a very big mentally intensive time. So how would you describe it for if like a friend was asking you, so like what is it like going from a deficit to a reverse to maintenance?
I think it's a huge leap of faith because you definitely need a lot of reassurance that when you gain the pounds on the scale, that the scale tells you that you're really not, your body is compensating and starting to actually hold on to some water. And I don't believe to know the science exactly, but I would say that trusting the process it's frightening and hard, and it goes against everything you think you should do because your visual cues are completely opposite. And then once you get over that hump of trusting, then you start to see that you're like, oh, I kind of like eating more than 1,300 calories. I kind of like not eating cauliflower rice with every stir fry I make because I'm trying to save 200 calories and plus their carbs. So I don't want to, have just like simple carbohydrates as a part of my makeup of my diet.
You really struck a chord with that cauliflower rice. I've been in that place too, and it sucks. It sucks so bad.
Yes, it's like it just doesn't matter. It's not the same.
It'll never be quite the same as real rice. It just won't.
Nope. And I have celiac, so I am very familiar with all of the gluten-free options that you have to do. And I would say when you start to move towards that higher calorie where you're starting to intake the different things, sometimes it's like, oh, this is an enjoyable experience that I'm actually sitting down and having my lunch and I'm meal prepping and I'm thinking about here, what are the options for nutrition that I can actually have instead of like, okay, what's the lowest calorie thing I can get inside of me and make sure that it's like super filling, ish. And it's not going to take forever to eat because I have 25 minutes to eat. And
It's like you're playing a different game. It's like, okay, not how little, it's like, how do I get all this awesome stuff in?
everything in. Yeah. So I think that was very freeing to move past that mental block of like, I'm always trying to find the low calorie substitutes. And then to have the days where you're like in the gym and you lift and you're like, wow, look what I just did. I can push my weights further because I'm fueled and my body feels good. And when I have a day where it's like, maybe we had a celebration and I had something that I really enjoyed. And then the next day I'm like, man, this is excess for the gym. I'm going to leave this all out here. I'm going to push it. Like, I'm going to use this. So, like, that's been my mentality. And that's such a shift from when you're trying to be in a calorie deficit and you're like, okay, how much do I want to leave at the gym? Because it's just going to make me super hungry. Or like running makes you hungry. Like, you're not hungry to start. But then if you do a morning run and then you're like 4 o'clock, you're like, okay, what can I eat? Because I want to eat everything.
And that's a very underrated reason as to why, like, because people I know, like coaches that I talk to all the time, will always, like across the board, for some reason, runners have such a hard time losing weight. And people forget when you do that volume of work, you get ravenous and
Yeah.
it's hard not to overeat.
Yes, absolutely. Super hard because your mind also plays tricks on you. You're like, okay, I just ran 6 miles. And for me, for my size and my efficiency, that's about 600 calories. I usually burn about 100 calories per mile, unless it's super hot or really hilly or whatever, like just the average. And so,
Then there's just that infinite sign.
yeah.
All the calories were burned.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, okay, guess what 600 calories is if you're just replacing those calories? That's a really good sandwich with some meat and maybe a slice of cheese and a little bit of mayo, some chips, and some veggies. There's your 600 calories right there. So if you're trying to maintain, that's it. That's what your meal needs to be. But if you're
Yeah,
trying,
not the pizza slice or the donut or the coffee that's actually dessert.
yeah. So it's really realistically like, how do you want to refuel and how do you want your body to feel after you've exerted all this energy? And it's really super easy to get the munchies after and be like, well, I deserve it. So therefore, I'm going to do this. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. It's a hard one.
Yeah. And there was a lot of good stuff in there, but I think the big one too that you mentioned is the fact that you know what 600 calories are. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's like if you just said, "Hey, I'm just having this sandwich," and you asked, "So how many calories do you think that is?" The average person probably would say something around like 300 calories maybe, because that's just what they think a sandwich should be, but it's not. Like a lot of people do not have the understanding of what the caloric value of their food is. And
Right.
that's probably like the biggest skill that I think you mastered was like, listen, I know exactly what's in this, and this. So
Yes.
when it came to getting to that place, like tracking the food, did you ever have any issues with like weighing food and understanding this is how much that is, or any kind of struggles with that?
I think so when I first started really paying attention to my food intake was after I had my youngest and I was on my Fitness Pal and I would enter my food. I wouldn't weigh, I wouldn't scan. Sometimes, the caloric value is on the package if it's something packaged, but otherwise, and in my brain, I'd always be like guesstimating things and then wondering why I wasn't losing any weight. So when I finally started to like get really smart about it was when I grabbed a food scale and bought one for 15 bucks and I use it often just because eyeballing doesn't work. You really would be so surprised at what 6 ounces of chicken looks like. You're like, chicken is a great food, right? 250 calories and I don't know how many grams of protein, probably like 25, 30 is what about 6 ounces of chicken, right? So give or take right in there. But if you put a normal serving, like of what you might get at a restaurant or whatever, and you put that on the scale, it's usually 9 ounces. So something that's a really good food for you, but still, if you're trying to be in a deficit, that's, 350 calories of chicken. So you need to make sure that your other things are balanced differently if you want to eat all that chicken. So
Yep.
definitely.
And with the restaurant, it's probably coming with a crap ton of oil too. So not only that, you're getting like probably 200-ish calories of oil.
Right, right. So I definitely did get into more measuring and understanding portion sizes and being more mindful of that. And now I can mostly eyeball it, but I go back to the scale often, to be honest. I'll put
Yeah.
things on a scale just to check myself and make sure. And right now I'm working on a deficit again after a race. And so that's valuable for that. But even when I'm trying to push my fuel and make sure I'm fueling, I use it for the opposite reason, to make sure that I'm giving myself enough. And so I think that food scale can be really invaluable, watching your portion sizes and balancing those things out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with everything you just mentioned, I was like, I don't know if you noticed, I was sitting back and just smiling, like cheesing the entire time, because I'm like, this is going to be a clip. I just know this is going to be a clip. Um, because everything you said was so spot on. And this is also a reason too why, like, Weight Watchers, for example, is a really good example of this, where we have 0-calorie or 0-point foods that have all these calories that come with it. So people eat nothing but 0-point foods, and they're like, what gives?
Yeah.
So this is the calories really are the points that matter.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to what's coming up next, because I like kind of just going along this path. Now, you already mentioned that we're going into a deficit. Like, what are the big goals that we're going to be working on? And based on everything that you just said, like, what are the big focuses you're going to be thinking about going into this next phase?
Yeah. So into the deficit specifically,
Mhm.
I think, and it's taken me about a week because it's the start of the school year, and for me that is a really crazy time. It's the choices that I make are really high nutrition and balanced with some things that I enjoy. So I think that standpoint is really important for me, because I like to meal prep. I like to have things ready to go. It's Friday, and for breakfast this morning, I had an Owen protein shake and a banana, because that's what I could get in me. And but that's a good protein. I've got some good quick carbs that are going to fuel me. And then my snack was like, what did I have for a snack? I might not have had a snack today. Today was really busy. But my lunch was like this kind of like a charcuterie-ish thing I did some little salami bites and a baby bell cheese and some cucumbers and grapes. And it was about 425 calories, because that is what time I had to prepare. So there's just and for me, in a calorie deficit, my goal is still just really focusing in on the nutrition and I need to have some things that I'm like, okay, if you want to go out and have a drink, I'm good with that. And you just work it into what we're doing. And then secondly, I'd say that I'm also, one of the things you introduced me to, and I think has been, maybe we've been doing it for about a year, I don't remember, but is this concept of 3 protein, 3 fiber, 3 color. And for me, it was
PFC.
snacks, PFCs,
Yep.
2 snacks, because I was trying to make sure I was getting all the nutrients I need in a day. And that focus it's like rock solid. If I do those things, my calorie profile and my protein profile shake out. Like it's amazing how those days that I like nail it and I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is a great day. And in the past, I would try to balance those macros. I was always shooting for that protein macro, and I'd be just like, I cannot get 100 grams of protein in the foods that I'm eating. And this has been just a way easier approach to just think about how I'm adding those things in. And then it also balances out for me the need. I'm a salty person. I like a serving of chips. Like that is something that makes me happy. And then I don't feel like I have to deny myself that, as long as I'm really making sure I'm including all the other things most days. So
Yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better explanation of PFC. I'll get you your $10 after the show. So no, but in all seriousness, no, that is incredible to hear, because like when we do have these standards to meet that get us to these goals, that's really the main difference. Because there's some rule out there, I forget the name of it, but basically the concept is, if the goal is the goal, then the goal is wrong, because you need to focus on the things that get you to the goal, not just achieving it. So when we get those 3 Ps, those 3 Fs, those 3 Cs, it's like kind of just takes care of itself.
yeah, it really does. It shakes out, like I said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, with all that being said, I know that you have dropped so much amazing knowledge and experience that people are going to walk away with, that are really going to be able to feel more motivated and inspired and more confident in their own journey. Now, if somebody's listening and they are currently like struggling, and maybe you've been in this particular place yourself and you were speaking to yourself at that time, what would you say to them to get them going in the right direction?
Honestly, I think you have to find a way to have accountability, because it's the accountability for most people that helps things happen. And if you are trying to self teach on some different concepts and you're not the expert on that, it can be hard to, if you have a number of failed attempts at trying to do something and you're like, well, it's you start to self-blame, like I don't have enough discipline, I don't have enough willpower, I'm just not doing this right. I do think that there's so much value in having whatever accountability built in that you can find, and that expert help that you can find. So whether that be working with a trainer, or be having a friend that you're like 3 times a week, we're going to meet to walk, and I'm going to meal plan, and hey, let's do the same meals, and let's plan some meals together and create some things that will help us with a busy lifestyle. I think that accountability piece, wherever it might come, is number 1 for me. And number 2 would be getting some expert support or specialized support if you're finding that you keep trying things and nothing seems to be sticking, because I think that knowledge, being armed with that, is invaluable.
Yeah, and I like how you frame that, because I think a lot of people do self-blame and say, why am I not doing this? Like, we kind of feel like fitness and nutrition should just be this thing that we all know, when it's like it's so multifactorial and there's so many things going on that you can't be an expert in all of these.
Mhm. Right.
Especially if you work another full-time job. Like, I would never try and attack my own taxes or open up my own car to do an oil change. Like, I refuse. Like, I will gladly get somebody who's an expert in that.
Yes.
So you might as well just get somebody in your corner that's literally their job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The best advice we got when we were going to purchase our own home was from the inspector. And he looked at us and he said, "This is my word of advice." I think we were, 25 or something. And he said, "Never try to do something that you should be paying someone to do, because they have the knowledge and the skill and the necessary tools to make the job happen. And you always look to do that in your life in a way." And he was talking about the house, but I take that to heart from a standpoint of just getting that knowledge and that skill, if you have the means to do that, and have someone help you out with that. Of course, do it yourself is great. And then there's a point where you're undoing all the damage that you may have done.
So if anybody's listening to this right now and looking around at their really shitty grout in their bathroom, or the molding that didn't turn out quite right, or that fan that won't stop creaking after you adjusted it, we're talking.
Yes. Absolutely.
I do grouting on tile too. So just so everyone's aware. But no, if you do need help when it comes to fitness nutrition, obviously that's what I do. In person or over Zoom for the personal training, and then the online coaching like we have been doing with Terri is also available as well. That's what the First 5 program teaches you guys. So you learn everything that Terri was just talking about, and we focus on losing that first 5 pounds in a month and get you on that fast track to getting the results that you want. So if you guys are interested in that, just go down below and click away, get more info. Now, Terri, on that note, thank you so much for hopping on. Like, this has been one of those I've really been looking forward to for too long. And I'm like I'm kicking myself for not getting you on sooner, but thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. This was a blast.
Absolutely. Very mutual feeling over here too. So, and thank you to everybody who made it all the way through and soaked in all the tips and got all the knowledge. Appreciate you taking the time to learn this stuff and really embrace it and use it in your own life. So thank you. I'll see you guys in the next episode. But until then, go kick some ass. Bye-bye.